See, I don't know how. I was discussing the exterior design and somehow I dove back in, went off track and started talking about the drive. There goes the back a little bit, but just enough where I can control it. Welcome back to Adam Drives LA. My name is Adam and I review the coolest cars on LA's most iconic roads. Now before we get into today's car, let me tell you where I am. We're at the base of Griffith Park. Look at all the trees around me. Now this is about a mile north of Hollywood Boulevard and all the tourists come here to go to the very top, which is the Griffith Observatory. Now on the way there, people don't know there's another road that goes there. This road. Twisty, windy, amazing road for a car like this. Ladies and gentlemen, today's car is the 2020 Porsche 718 Boxster. Now, I'm not a big Porsche guy. I've said it many times, and I've even gone as far as to say that it's an overrated brand, overrated cars. But because I have driven the Alfa Romeo 4C, the Audi TTRS, a few Lotuses, and pretty much every modern Corvette made, I think it's only fair we give this a shot. I've had multiple people tell me, when am I gonna have a Porsche on the channel? So this is a good one to start with. We'll take it up an awesome road. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so now. Scroll down, hit the like button, follow me on Instagram, Adam Drives LA, just like the name of the channel. Ooh, we're out of breath. It's a hot day, folks. Stay with me. We're gonna jump in and start climbing up the mountain. Before we get into the numbers, the specs, the interior, exterior, let's talk about the most important thing, and that would be the drive. And there's no denying it. Low center of gravity. I mean, the handling is just undeniable. The accuracy is insane. Wow. And it sounds pretty good when the top is up. Mind you, I had to have the top up because the sun glares into the camera. I don't want that. I've had that ruin a couple of videos in the past. Oh man, the car handles like a dream. It really feels like you're go-karting. Super confident driving on these roads. Wow, we really are glued to the road. I knew to expect this with the 718. I didn't know what to expect with the new engine, which we'll talk about in a minute. It is a flat 4, not a flat 6. It still has that kind of blurbly sound, but it's a little bit deafened. I don't like that, but man, the handling is just undeniable. Wow. There goes the back a little bit, but just enough where I can control it. The PDK transmission is so fast. I mean, the downshifts just come in the blink of an eye. Wow, when you are through with a turn, once you start to straighten out, the car just does it for you, and throttle is instant. It just goes. There is a tiny bit of turbo lag, of course, in the lower RPMs, but as you get up there, I mean, the car is just planted, powerful, super accurate. Now, I'm going to remain in sport mode. I've turned the exhaust button off so you can hear me better, because with this convertible top, it is still very loud. It's not very well insulated in here. Porsche needs to improve on that, but we'll do our best. Let's talk about the engine for a second. This has a turbo flat 4. It's a 2.0, very small engine, makes about 300 horsepower, 280 pounds-feet of torque, and the 0 to 60 is a brisk 4.4 seconds thanks to that PDK transmission, which shifts instantly. Now, I have a curvy road ahead of me, very fun windy road, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about the design in the exterior, the interior. There's not that much to talk about, but let me make a couple of quick points so we can enjoy the drive, which is the most important thing with this car. The exterior design. I've never been a big Porsche guy. I will tell you, they're beautiful. They're wonderful to look at. Nobody can say Porsche makes ugly cars, but they make the same beautiful cars for the last, what is it now, 50 years? I mean, from the 70s on, it's just developing at the slowest pace, and the designer in me that loves to check these car blogs, these design websites, to see the latest and spy shots of all the new revisions of cars. Every time you see a Porsche in a spy shot with camo, it just turns out to be like a new diffuser. user. I understand they found something that works. A lot of companies have found something that works, but you improve on it. Porsche not improving on it is just telling me they're afraid. They're afraid they'll screw it up. So I saw them screw it up with the first generation Panamera, and I hope they don't do it again, but they need to change something. But to make some brief points about the design, of course, it's gorgeous from every angle. I mean, the front is iconic. We're not going to talk about the front because everyone already knows it. The rear, the sculpting on the 718, on that rear fender, the way it catches reflections, especially on the Boxster and less on the Cayman. The Cayman, because it is a hardtop only, and the Boxster would be the convertible version. Very similar cars, nearly identical from what I understand. But I really do like the look of the Boxster. I've always thought I could see myself possibly buying a used convertible. It would end up being a Boxster because their value just drops so low. The 718, I have a feeling, will hold its value a lot better. This car is just something else. I mean, you cannot say it feels underpowered. You hear the numbers, 280 torque, just doesn't sound like that much. But when you're coming out of a turn, you know the thrust you feel is unbelievable. See, I don't know how. I was discussing the exterior design and somehow I dove back in, went off track, and started talking about the drive. So before that happens again, let's talk about the interior for a minute. The interior is pretty simple. There's nothing crazy. When you first get in, one thing I love, the steering wheel, very thick, bolstered, but I love that metal trim around it. The paddle shifters, very close. They're metal. They feel good. Everything feels quality in this. There's a little bit of plastic here and there, a little bit on the door, a little bit on the dash. It's nothing really to complain about. You are at the base model. So the base model does start at $62,000, which is not cheap, but I will make the case that you get a ton of performance for $62,000. I might as well say unrivaled performance. See, I did it again. I was talking about the interior and somehow we started talking about the drive. Let me wrap up the interior. The screen is basic. Honestly, it's pretty responsive for what it is. It looks boring. There's not a lot you can do on it. It is a touch screen and it's fine. It's responsive. Nothing much to talk about there. Below that, you have an array of buttons. The top half control your sound, your music, your source of music, the Bluetooth, all of that. Below that is pretty much all your climate controls. There, generally, I'd say it's pretty easy to understand. It's nothing special. Below that, the shifter, very nice. You have the 718 plaque below it. Now, underneath that, you have a couple of interesting things. Of course, that is where you control the convertible top to go up and down. You put it into sport mode. You can adjust the spoiler from here, which I didn't know that the 718, the one I'm in, the base model would have had an adjustable spoiler, and it adjusts the smallest amount. It's probably just a gimmick. I doubt there's real numbers to prove this does anything, but it does go up and down just a little bit. The seats in the car, they're pretty dull. They're not that exciting. They don't really hold you in place. They're kind of tight, so maybe like a skinnier, smaller person can fit in here, but I know my shoulders, my hips, everything is just falling out of this thing. So this is a smaller person's car. Now the seat, it does stop at some point. Obviously you can see behind me, but I will say I can't complain. I have plenty of room here. I'm 6'2", no problem whatsoever. Now storage is a very important thing on cars like this because they are two seats, they're tight, so you want a lot of storage, and you're lucky this car has a ton of it. In the front you have a ton of storage, pretty deep, very deep actually. In the rear you have a shallow bit more of storage. It's not that much. You can only fit maybe a suitcase or something. Inside you have, in the doors, you have a little bit of extending storage. The center console, you have a tiny block down here that opens up, and of course you have your trusty ashtray in your Porsche. Now while we're talking about storage and we're in the interior, I do have to mention I always laugh about the German engineering for cup holders. For some reason, the German companies love overcomplicating cup holders, and the best case is this car. I've never seen anything like this. Look at how many moving components to open up and use these cup holders. That probably is like hundreds of dollars in moving parts. I don't know why they couldn't just put a little hole. Why do I need an ashtray in this car? I mean, when I'm taking a turn and I'm using the throttle to get out of it, use the exit speed, do I look over to make sure my Marlboro short is still down there? People are vaping these days. Porsche, you can get rid of the ashtray. I will mention, when I put this thing in reverse, I don't know why the reverse camera has this big blob as Porsche from the top view. I don't know what it does. It kind of tells me to be careful on either side, but it takes up like a quarter of the screen. I don't know what this thing is for. They could have used either a silhouette, just an outline, something that that's like transparent. I don't know what this thing is. So blocky and ugly. I don't know what it's there for. Porsche needs to get rid of that, address that. It made me laugh when I first saw it. Now you'll notice that the ignition is on the left side of the driver, and there's a reason for that. Maybe now it's kind of a gimmick, but Porsche is paying homage to the old days of Le Mans racing. And the style was, before the race didn't just start, the drivers were all lined up outside of their cars across the racetrack. And when the race began, they all ran at the same time to their cars, which were lined up, and whoever got there quicker got in their car and just got out of that spot quicker and joined the race. Now, Porsche and the other companies eventually figured out that to make things even a split second faster, it was quicker to use your right hand to slide over the seatbelt and to use your left hand to turn the ignition simultaneously. That saved a split second, which was enough to put you ahead of the next couple of cars. Very cool that Porsche continues to do that even today with, I believe, every single model they have. The gauges up front, they're very aggressive, they're very sporty, they're not totally digital. There's very little you can do with it. You scroll through, it shows you your tire pressure, your drive time, things like that. There's a couple of keywords, I guess. I don't know what this exactly is. I didn't go too deep into it. This is not why I'm here. We're gonna get back to driving this thing, and I'm gonna tell you again about how the accuracy is just on another level. Now, after driving it for a while, my verdict on the Flat 4 is the sound. The sound is not great. Honestly, the car performs just fine. I can't tell you that there's a noticeable difference from the Flat 6 to the Flat 4. It really is just a sound. It doesn't sound that great. It sounds like a tractor behind me. Maybe when you're really, I mean, you're just slamming the throttle, the turbo sound and everything mixed in just does its job. But generally driving, I mean, you just hear it wind up the turbo, and then as it lets off, it's just this crunchy, kind of odd sound that I'm not crazy about. I didn't love the Flat 4. I think Porsche kind of dropped the ball, but I mean, the performance just speaks for itself though. How can you really tell them they didn't do a good job? And if you're wondering, no, 300 horsepower does not feel slow. No, the Flat 4 does not feel slow. Does it sound good? No, I've already made that point. But don't think at all for a second that you're not getting a powerful car. The GTS obviously is on another level. Someday we'll review that. Right now, I wanted to show you a base 718 that most people will be able to get if they're in the market for a car like this. This car almost has a Jekyll and Hyde feature. I mean, when I'm in the city, as I am now, I have the exhaust button off, I'm out of sport mode, and it's just kind of not a very pleasant thing to drive around. One, the interior, but also the sound is just everywhere. It's a very loud kind of sound right behind me. It's not attractive, it's not a sexy sound. It's something that really needs refinement. But when you go up to the canyons, when you go up to the mountains, to the racetrack, the level of suspense you get from putting it in sport mode and just taking those turns, coming out of a corner with rapid speed, it's just unlike anything else. I mean, your attention is just laser focused in front of you because you know how capable the car is. Now it's a test of you as a driver. Now that I've been driving the car pretty much all day, I have a pretty good grasp on the car, a good understanding. So the question is, do I think you should buy one? Am I in love with the Porsche brand? Have I been converted? Let's address those one by one. Do I think that you should buy one? If you are in that price range of $60, $70, maybe $80,000, I say get this car, but option it out a little bit nicer than this, because the entire point of this car is that it's a daily drivable and totally trackable car all in one. And the daily driving part, sure, I can, but it's not a very pleasant place to be in when you're spending over $60,000. You really want something that does everything pretty well. A few options would make this a lot nicer, so definitely do that. It is the obvious choice over all the other ones I mentioned if you're going for performance. If not for performance, honestly, I still am leaning towards the Audi TTRS because it was a really exciting, thrilling car. But let's focus on this one. The next question, have I been converted and do I love Porsches now? I've not been converted, but I can't tell you that I don't love Porsches, because everything that I love about this car, I already knew I'm gonna love it. I've driven Porsches in the past, obviously nothing, no 718s, but the 718, I mean, it really blew my expectations away. The handling is tremendous, it's flawless, it's as close to perfect handling as it gets. It's almost dangerous, the level of confidence you have coming out of a turn in a rear-wheel drive car with 280 torque. You can get yourself in trouble, but take a few classes. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you'll see this car is just, it exceeds every expectation you have when it comes to performance. and we're back into the city. I hope I was able to make my point of why I've not always been crazy about Porsches, but as you see, my drive back and forth, there's no denying it. I cannot argue anyone that this is one of the best handling cars, and the brand does it so well across all of their cars, even their SUVs, their sedans. They just have a magic about them. So I totally understand some of you, the Porsche people, that are just crazy about the brand. Thank you so much for watching. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. Again, scroll down, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, and I will see you in the next car.